If you are a subscriber to this channel, you probably know by now that here and there I pick up a topic that pertains to tradition. And in a brief manner, I go over the background and the meaning of that tradition. Today's video is on those lines. I'm going to discuss the significance of wearing a Shikha or a tuft of hair on the head. This is an age-old tradition followed by certain sects of Hinduism. The tradition of wearing a tuft of hair on the head used to be much more common in the earlier days, but I guess with the focus on having a common dress etiquette, workplace or school requirements, and fitting into the cultural traits of a professional or a community environment, and just evolving with the modern day customs, the widespread adoption of this tradition has seen a reduction. Before I discuss the topic, I need to offer a caveat, or as they say, a caution or a forewarning. You see, when it comes to traditional topics, there is usually never a certainty on the reason or background of the tradition. There isn't an authoritative scripture that stands the test of time. The simple reason being, traditions change over time and they depend on the geographical area, they depend on the circumstances and the evolution of humankind and nature. This is precisely the reason why I keep discussions on traditions to a minimum. But now and then I bring it up to spice it in between spirituality so that there is a proper understanding and appreciation of the traditional aspect. This way, if you're following a traditional aspect that I discuss on this channel, like this topic of Shikha, then you're better equipped with the background of that particular topic so that you can at least offer a reasonable explanation at your school, at your workplace, or anywhere else. None of these mean that I necessarily agree or disagree with a tradition. After all, it is a tradition. And if it is a tradition, then it's a belief. And who am I to question anyone's belief? It is very difficult to pinpoint a tradition as absolute truth. Instead, it is best to see it as a belief of a certain individual, a certain community, or a sect. And if it's harmless, instead of challenging it, best just to respect it. When it comes to spirituality or divinity, on the other hand, or experience of God, it's a completely different proposition. You can have an inquiry, and there is an element of experience and applicability. And the Gita and the Upanishads offer up as spiritual constitutional books that can be held as the baseline and reference. Okay, let's get back to the topic now of wearing a Shikha or a tuft of hair that is observed among Hindu men of certain sects. The basis of a Shikha is deep rooted in Hindu culture and religious practices. There are 16 samskaras or sanctifying ceremonies to be performed by a religious Hindu person. Some of these 16 are applicable to men, and some of them are to women, and some to both. At some point, I guess I should be doing a complete video on these sanctifying ceremonies, and I'll park that for a later time. But for now, for this video, we're concerned with 2 of those 16 ceremonies. One of these is a tonsure ceremony, or taking out of the hair, called the Chudakarana, and the other one performed for boys is an initiation ceremony also called Upanayana. At least during the first tonsure ceremony or taking out of the hair or Chudakarana, but definitely in the second ceremony or Upanayana, along with the tonsure, taking of the hair, a tuft of hair though is left on the boy's head. This tuft of hair extends usually from the center of the head for a certain length and then it is knotted. Why was this practice of having a tuft of hair adopted? There are three main reasons in which you can summarize this whole thing. Number one, the Hindu philosophy considers life to enter and exit from an axis point situated right at the top. This nerve point or chakra is the entry point of life force for a child in the mother's womb. It is also called the crown chakra. Essentially, the fetus in the mother's womb is said to become a living being when this life force pervades the child from this nerve point situated in the crown of the head. Students of math or mathematics would know the name René Descartes. He was an amazing philosopher, scientist, and mathematician. He gave the Cartesian theorem. He came up with the concept of the seat of the soul and defined its location in the center of the brain, synonymous with the crown chakra. The Gita in chapter 7 and 8 says that when a spiritually mature person leaves the body, the life force of that individual leaves from the same nerve point or crown chakra. And this is called as Sahasrara. I've done several videos on death, what happens when someone dies, who should you remember when you die, and the importance of this Sahasrara chakra. You can check them out. I've also given that in the description below. The tuft of hair or the Shikha from the crown point of the head symbolizes a connectivity to this Sahasrara chakra. And by knotting the tuft, it is a symbolic gesture to say that the life force that has entered is allowed to continue to drive positive energies within the body for spiritual pursuits. This is also the reason why during a tonsure ceremony, even though the rest of the hair is removed, the tuft of hair in the middle is retained. Let's look at the second main reason. The second reason for having a tuft of hair or Shikha is identity and continuity. It signifies the lineage. Every Hindu person is traced to a sage or somebody as part of their lineage. There are Hindu scriptures called Smritis, which are books written to codify practices and customs. One such book, called the Yajnavalkya Smriti, describes the tuft or the Shikha to be left. And this is not the Yajnavalkya of the Upanishads. The Upanishad Yajnavalkya was a great seer. I could only think the later day book of this Smriti was called by the same name to indicate the teachings to have some basis and linkage to the Upanishads. As I said, this Smriti gives out certain details on the types of Shikha. And depending on the lineage of the individual or the sage or the seer from where they were supposed to have originated, there is a guidance given. And the guidance could be that you have to wear the Shikha to the left, to the right, to the middle, the number of partitions to be made of the Shikha. It goes into those details. What you could gather is, from this perspective, Wearing a shikha is a way to maintain cultural identity and continuity and lineage. It signifies adherence to traditional values and customs passed down through generations. Lastly, let's come to the third main reason for wearing a shikha, or the tuft of hair. The shikha is considered as a mark of purity and cleanliness and of health benefits. It is often maintained by those individuals who perform religious duties and rituals. Now, there is a belief that shikha has health benefits, such as regulating body temperature and maintaining mental clarity. I have not found convincing research to prove this, even though I could visualize a scenario where having a healthy tuft of hair, for probably people who are not bald, can be a sort of a protection to an injury to the crown of the head. The practice of having a shikha varies among different communities. There is no right or wrong answer, as you know, when it comes to a tradition or a practice. Because as I said earlier, a tradition is a belief. And if they are harmless, best to just respect it. A shikha remains an important cultural and religious symbol for many, and hope this video helped you understand the background of this tradition. I'll talk to you soon. Stay healthy, stay blessed.